So, have you ever heard the myth that simply checking all the boxes and meeting the basic requirements automatically guarantees you a green card? A lot of folks think immigration is just, well, a giant bureaucratic checklist. You fill out the forms, pay the fees, and boom, you get your approval, right? Well, actually, what if I told you the final decision rests almost entirely on a single officer's subjective discretion? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to break down some complex source documents so you can see exactly how this system really works behind the scenes. Take a look at this official document from U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Specifically, we're zeroing in on Policy Memorandum PM 602-0199, which was issued on May 21, 2026. Now, this isn't just your everyday run-of-the-mill administrative paperwork. Not at all. It's a foundational memo that directly clarifies exactly how permanent residency is truly awarded here in the United States. If you really want to grasp the modern immigration framework and figure out why certain applications get flat out denied, even when folks seem totally eligible, you absolutely have to understand this document. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for decoding this highly technical legal document today. First, we'll look at the 2026 policy memo. Second, discretion, not a right. Third, we'll cover the expected consular process. Fourth is weighing the factors. And finally, we'll wrap up with the final takeaway. All right, Section 1, the 2026 Policy Memo. The core thesis of PM 6020199 is incredibly simple, but man, is it powerful. Eligibility does not guarantee approval. Let me say that again. Just because an applicant checks every single statutory box, like say they have an approved family sponsor, the proper employment petition, and a squeaky clean record, that doesn't mean they automatically get approval to stay. No way. This memo exists specifically to remind both immigration officers and the public of that exact harsh reality. Moving right along to Section 2, discretion, not a right. So I want you to think about this for a second. Is permanent residency ever a true guarantee? In a government system built on strict written laws and statutes, you've probably assumed the answer is yes, right? You follow the rules, you get the benefit. But the harsh legal reality of the U.S. immigration system is that gaining permanent residency from inside the country is literally almost never a simple rubber stamp. To understand exactly why, we have to define what's called adjustment of status. The government legally classifies this as an extraordinary relief that allows someone to obtain lawful permanent residence without ever leaving the United States. That's a crucial distinction. It is not standard operating procedure. Instead, it's a highly specific mechanism designed to bypass the normal, ordinary immigration procedures that usually require someone to wait their turn outside the country. And because it completely bypasses that normal route, it's governed by a fascinating concept called administrative grace. Basically, this means we're dealing with a discretionary favor granted by the government. It is absolutely not a legal entitlement or some right you can just demand in court. The government grants this special favor strictly on a case-by-case basis, which leaves the ultimate say over the lawful immigration system sitting squarely with the Secretary of Homeland Security. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this isn't just some arbitrary rule invented by a single bureaucratic agency. No, this strict interpretation is actually backed up by the highest court in the land. In the 2022 Supreme Court case Patel v. Garland, they explicitly declared relief from removal is always a matter of grace. The courts, including the Supreme Court and the Board of Immigration Appeals, consistently affirm that this is an extraordinary act. They firmly place all the power right in the adjudicator's hands. Okay, Section 3, the expected consular process. Let's actually compare these two pathways. On one hand, doing an adjustment of status inside the U.S. is officially labeled as extraordinary and entirely discretionary. But on the other hand, the consular process, which is handled outside the U.S., is considered the ordinary expected path. You see, Congress laid out a very detailed statutory scheme, and their clear preference is that immigrants wait in the orderly consular line abroad. Seeking to adjust your status from inside the U.S. goes directly against that baseline expectation. The memo actually hits one specific phrase over and over again, and that is extraordinary relief. Skipping the consular line isn't just some casual alternative option. It is a major exception, and it requires the utmost caution. The whole system is intentionally designed this way to strongly discourage people from moving to the U.S. before they are actually fully eligible for permanent residence. Next up, Section 4, weighing the factors. And this brilliantly illustrates the difficult balancing act for the officer. It's like a giant puzzle. On one hand, they have to look at positive equities, things like deep family ties to the U.S. or documented evidence of good moral character. But on the flip side, they have to weigh negative factors, stuff like immigration violations, a history of fraud, or simply overstaying a visa. And the memo makes one thing crystal clear. Simply lacking negative factors just isn't enough to win. You don't get a free pass just for not breaking the rules. To handle this, the memo outlines some very strict adjudication guidelines. Officers are instructed to analyze the totality of the circumstances. They have to determine what is absolutely in the best interest of the United States. Every single application must be evaluated strictly on a case-by-case basis. And here is a super fascinating procedural safeguard. If an officer decides to exercise their discretion negatively and deny an application, they are literally required to provide a written explanation detailing exactly why the negative factors outweighed the positive ones in that specific case. 100%. That is exactly how much of the burden of proof rests purely on the applicant's shoulders. It's not a 50-50 split with the government here. If an applicant has violated immigration laws, like overstaying a visa or working without authorization, the memo states they might need to show unusual or even outstanding equities just to offset those adverse factors. The burden is 100% on the person seeking the status to persuade the officer that they actually deserve the favor. Finally, Section 5, the final takeaway. Ultimately, this memo reaffirms a consistent, long-standing approach by the Department of Homeland Security, enforcing strict statutory limits and putting national interests first. It is a powerful reminder that the agency views adjustment of status as the exception, never the rule. Really, this document serves as a major restatement of policy, signaling to everyone that the agency will faithfully apply the statutes under that incredibly strict understanding. So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. If permanent residency heavily relies on administrative grace, how will this strict interpretation shape the future of the U.S. immigration system? When bureaucratic discretion is this broad, the real-world impact on millions of applicants is profound. It shifts the entire landscape from a simple paperwork checklist to a complex, heavily scrutinized evaluation of a person's entire history. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope this focused look at the source material gives you a much clearer understanding of the hidden legal forces shaping these policies.